Are you as optimistic as I am?
Yes.
Good. So say a little more about that.
Well, my name is J.W. Ray. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Learn.com. So I agree with Dr. Echols. I think there's just a multifarious opportunity for everybody in this room to really demonstrate the importance of your position. I think in training or HR, in today's war on talent, which is unequivocal, that you all should have that seat at the table or be that CLO as well respected as the CFO and the CEO. Every organization tags and documents laptops and cell phones. There's little ID tags in every one of them. They don't have any ID tags on the most important asset in that company, and that's the employee or their ecosystem, their clients, to find out the NPS scores, the Net Promoter Scores. You all have that enormous responsibility to really make a significant business impact with the most important asset that company has spent the most amount of money on. So if you look at probably most of the organizations he's done studies on, their biggest line item is salaries, more than likely. It's their biggest single expense. And you can demonstrate without question the impact, the positive impact your training has and your programs have on that business, elevating Net Promoter Scores or understanding the DISC assessments or the X10s and the Gallup personality profiles. That all still revolves around training and learning, right? So once you get it, how do the managers know how to interact with those people with those profiles? It's training. So, I mean, learning is at the essence of every human interaction, and that's your responsibility. It's huge, and you need to be elevated within that organization. So,
I knew I was here for a reason.
Exactly. So, obviously, the thematic approach of this empowerment conference has been ROI, right? So, and we wanted to make sure that you all were enlightened with great documentation and empirical evidence on the validity of ROI and how it can really create a demonstrable business impact. And hopefully there's some great takeaways from these slides and the presentations and Jack Phillips and just the think equity here in the room. So hopefully we can all continue the dialogue and it doesn't stop here. There's a huge opportunity, enormous. And I want us to seize it today and not have it disappear today.
It's not only an opportunity, it's a responsibility. That we are at the heart of this issue. That whole issue about experience is about accelerating the knowledge necessary to compete in a 21st century global economy. And although I have backed away, my first book was ROI on human capital investment, and I build on what I had learned at General Electric in capital investment decision making. I personally backed away from ROI in some sense. Not that ROI is not important, but I think my personal opinion is it's not rich enough to get at all the complexities that are going on in our organization. So I talk about value creation, about commitment of resources and creating value. And in a sense, this list for these corporations are the value parameters of their enterprise. So I'm not, and anyway, Jack and I are not at odds over that issue. It is about impact measurement, and it is about owning it as part of what we do in our profession. I think it is the empowering aspect that we need to really have the impact that our organizations need. So I really appreciate the comments. Anything else on questions or conversations?
Right over here.
Yes.
Gary Little from Brandon Hall Research. I'm just curious about the fact that in the current situations, the numbers people, the accountants, got it so wrong. So my question is this a black swan that we're seeing, or is it just a normal business cycle? Are you in favor of Jon Stewart or Jim Cramer?
Well, I will tell you what I really think of the talking heads. All of them. It's like our information systems are just loaded with chatter. And I'll do a little bit of statistical conversation. If you remember your statistics, you remember about phenomena have a distribution. So it looks like a kind of a cone with tails on it. The talking heads are operating in the tails. What they do is, and this is true of our media in general, they talk about the exceptions out on the tails. In the meantime, the whole rest of the rest is trying to deal with the main part of the distribution, because that's where the real action is to get things done. But it gets attention to get the kidnapping of such and such. That's on the tail. They're basically, our talking heads are about the noise of the distribution out on the exception cases, on either tail. So I'm not on the talking heads piece. Do I think structurally that this is going to be profoundly affected by the current era that we are in? The answer is no. What is going to happen in our economic and political systems is we are going to print enough money to get through this. And both the Treasury and the Federal Reserve Board are going to swamp the economy with liquidity. They're already doing it. The global economy is doing it. The Chinese are doing it. Europeans are a little slower. Icelanders have no money, so that's a whole other story. But the answer is we are going to come out of it. The questions about inflation are real because there's so much liquidity, and structurally the issues are exactly the same as before we went into this arena. The bad thing about ROI, I think, is that the accountants are taking us largely in the wrong direction. They are only willing to measure and account for things that are in their rule set. And increasingly, in fact, in my last book on creating value in human capital investment, increasingly in the 21st century global economy, 80 to 85% of the value equation are elements the accountants cannot or will not measure. So the accountants aren't really doing us a whole lot of favor. In that sense, I think it is a different era. But that puts the onus on us that, in fact, if we are representing that our activities are really related to the 80 or 85% of the value equation, we have to do exactly what our society is saying to our banks. And what our society is saying to our banks, and what we are saying as owners of 401ks, I got to know what you got. I can't tell whether I'm going to put my money in there. I don't know if what you got is any good or not. Is that just garbage, or the CDO is going to collapse? That's all about measurement and transparency. And we will come through that basically by a massive injection of liquidity. And when we come out, we will come out with the same value proposition in the 21st century global economy, namely it is about things not on the balance sheet and a massive amount of liquidity that our organization is going to ask us to apply effectively. Thank you very much for having me.